My first race was in 2015. So this is going to be the sixth race. Sixth or seventh? Sixth. No, seventh. Yeah, 25, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, seventh in a row. This year we're racing once again the tribute car Ford GT40 1965, which is the GT40 Mark1. Last year we raced it, and it was a test type of race where we discovered a lot of things that needed to be improved on the cars, which have already been done. And it's still in development, but it's getting a lot closer to where the car will be just as it needs to be. The trick for me now is going to be learning the car again, because I haven't really raced it too much. So I'll start off taking it easy, getting to learn her again, and getting familiarized with her. So it's a big, powerful car, so I got to be careful. Little that I know of is a class that's been opened up to accept more cars that are very famous or very well known in past years, that are not really vintage or historic cars, but they're not really totally modern. So it's cars like the Lancia Stratos, a lot of Audis. So they're opening up that category for rally cars that they can compete in La Carrera Panamericana. That's how much I understand of the category. One very important issue, or one very important thing about the car, is that it's built to the true spirit of the car when it was raced and built in 1968. It's got the same type of engine, transmission, so we try to make it as close to what it was at the time. And the only addition that we did this year, we added electric air conditioning, so which is very important, because you're in there and you're really, really cooking, so we don't want to overheat in this very long race. There's the thrill of racing. It's the overcoming a lot of adversities and challenges. It's a very long race. It's a race that's won and raced with a big team behind you of not only the organizers, but the safety, the police, the teams that prepare the cars, the mechanics. La Carrera Panamericana is a very special race to me, because it's a very demanding race where you've got to prepare the car and prepare yourself for a very long time. And it's very intricate. The support teams are key to the race, because they're the ones that prepare the car, service it throughout the race. There's a lot of safety and support that's provided by the organizers. And I love to race in Mexico. The colors, the people, the friendliness, the enthusiasm that we receive in the towns and the cities that we arrive in is very special to me, being Mexican. So, and we discover a lot of parts of Mexico that we wouldn't if we weren't racing La Carrera Panamericana. That'd be a very good description, because it's a race that is still against the clock. And there's very few races around the world that are held on public roads. And this race still being held on public roads under the clock. So it's a time capsule as to what the Targa Fiorio and the Mille Miglia used to be. And now we're still able to do something similar at speed in Mexico. So it is the ultimate road race. It's very, not only is it very exciting, but you always want to be cautiously fast. What I mean by that is you want to be fast but not over the edge, because if you go out, it could be very, very dangerous, bad accident. So it's very thrilling to be racing, and you're always trying to catch up the guy that left 30 seconds ahead of you. So that's a target that I always have, and some stages we've been able to pass up to 3 cars that were ahead of us. in the long stages. So it's really thrilling, and they're all different conditions. So you've got to be very aware at all times, reading the road, reading the signs, paying attention to what the navigators are singing to you, making the hand signals at turns. So there's a lot going on. Plus, you've got to look at sometimes the spectators can warn you if there's danger ahead. If somebody's gone off, you can see him waving down. So you got to be aware. So it's very exciting. Because it's not it's not a race like you're in a track where the conditions are fairly similar. These conditions change dramatically, not only in the road but altitude. There's a lot of changes that need to be done to the carburetor so that the altitude does not affect them negatively. There's things that suspension needs to be reinforced. Your tire choice is very important too. We use a combination of Avons and Pirellis that are built for rallies with a very tall sidewall or a relatively tall sidewall. So those are some of the things. But more importantly, talk to people that have raced it. Ideally, hook up with a shop that is familiar with the rigors of La Carrera Panamericana so that they can deliver a car that will help you finish the race. It's a very strong bond that there's a lot of trust between what the navigator is telling you to do and what you are actually executing. And when it works really well, it's very exhilarating. And when something doesn't work well, there's an invisible line between the navigator and the pilot. If the navigator screws up, you say, well, no problem, we'll get it next time. And sometimes when the pilot screws up, you get that encouragement, like, it's okay, we'll get it next time. So it's not a criticism, it's encouraging. It's continually encouraging each other because it is a team as we're going through the race. There's almost two sets of lives that I believe they lead. One is the preparation of the car, which is a 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 job. And then there's the craziness of La Carrera Panamericana for them, where they have to get up very early, get the car prepared and ready to be picked up to start the race. Then they have to go to a lunch service, and then they have to go to an end-of-day service. And most of the days, they end up at night service, they end up taking most of the car apart to make sure everything is okay and everything is safe. They hear our reports, they hear during lunch or the night service. We give them a list of things that we hear or we feel that the car needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at, and then they prioritize those things first, and then they do all the other safety checks that they need to do. So it's very, very demanding for them during the race to service the cars that they do. One car may have anywhere from 2 to 6 mechanics working on it every day. It is magical. It is. You see the different cultures, the different clothing, the different food. The landscapes is completely different, from mountainous to arid to wet to so the topography changes dramatically throughout the whole race. Some valleys that we drive into, and you see these gorgeous valleys. Sometimes we see beautiful sunsets at the end of the day, and we get welcomed like rock stars when we come into the towns and cities, and that thrill, that it's impressive that we can bring some of that excitement to these places, remote places, and we feed off of that. We to make somebody smile, to see him giving you thumbs up, little kids, older people, just happy that you're racing in Mexico. It's very special. My favorite stage, hands down, it's Espinazo del Diablo, because it's a very long stage, and it's a stage where there's a lot of corners, but you get to see, for most of the stage, several corners, what's going on, what's happening ahead. So you're not only relying on the notes of your navigator, but you can see what's coming. And therefore I can go faster. I get more confidence and I can go faster. There's some transit stages that the time is so short, and with our car it's very low to the ground. If there's a lot of speed bumps, we really have to be careful with those stages, because the speed bumps, the car's so low, they slow us down a lot, and we don't want to be penalized for arriving late. So sometimes we have to go a little bit quicker in the transit stages to get to our assigned time and not be penalized. So that is, for me, gets me more nervous than actually going to the speed stage when things are closed off and you know you're the only car racing there. The part that I like the most is the camaraderie that happens with all my other race buddies, race friends that I don't see very often, and we all share this passion. Just hanging out together with them, having dinner, talking about what happened during the race. That's very exciting. Obviously the thrill of making to each stage, and it's like rolling the dice. You don't know what position you ended up during the day until it's all accounted for. So that's also a bit of a thrill. Where do you end up in the race for the day? Mexican roads are very varied. For the most part, they're in very good shape. There is roads that are very wide, some that are very narrow, some that are very slippery with conditions runoffs from the mountains, particularly in Mil Cumbres. But the notes that the organizers give us are quite handy in explaining some of the road conditions that we will experience. So the roads, you get a mixed match of different types of roads. For the most part, the pavement is fairly good. And throughout the race, I always feel very safe because the Guardia Nacional, which would be like the federal police, the contingent of, I think, 15 cars or with troopers, they follow the whole race, and they're part of the safety that they they go through the speed stages before we do to make sure there's no cattle or no horses or that type of thing floating around some of the roads. As well as, the organizers are very well supported by municipal and state police officers and municipal police, so that we're protected, really. So I've always felt very safe racing in Mexico, and I have never had any incident of being scared for my safety or anything like that. It's always been very, very secure. Felt very good. That's why I keep coming back. Those where we overcame adversity. Remember in one race in Mil Cumbres, we went off and we damaged the car. The front bumper flew off and hit our windshield, and it was cracked. And I was concerned because we're in a very dangerous exit corner. My cousin went up, my navigator, he went and he flagged everybody down to slow down. Nothing else happened. So we waited for the whole race to go past us, and then we were able to start the car back up again, backed up, grabbed the bumper, tied it down to the tail of the 911 that we were racing that year, and just kept going. So at that moment, when it happened, I thought our race is over. But luckily, nothing was damaged for the car, and we were able to continue to race. So it was the joy of we're racing again. We haven't given up. And we ended up 4th in class that year, even with that going off the track. So that's very memorable. That's perseverance. Our team, we got there at the lunch service. They looked at the car, nothing was bad. They reattached the front bumper. We raced the rest of the day with a cracked windshield, but the next day they put another windshield. So that was one of the memorable stories. One thing that's very interesting about this race is that because they've got all the different categories, you're always racing somebody. There's always somebody that you're racing against, and it's not like the track where you're racing against each other like this, but you're racing against the timesheet. And it is very thrilling to see who wins one day and the other guy will win the other. So you're always there's always a surprise at the end of the day is, how did I do? How did I perform? How did my team do? And so that's what I would recommend.